everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for coming to our now third session of the BizHub launch this week. We greatly appreciate your presence. Just a couple of housekeeping before I hand it over to our host, Mitch. Please keep your microphone on mute throughout the course. You are welcome to put any questions in the chat, or you can at any point in time when we have our Q&A unmute and ask a question. Also, if you'd like, please note that by registering for this awesome event, you have received a profile for the BizHub, which is a free location to access resources, information, connect with each other for peer-to-peer support and connectivity. After the presentation today, we will be sharing a short demonstration of what BizHub is and how you can access it and log in, and how you can see more about the other events that are coming up this week. Please note we are recording this session, but it is only in presentation view, so no one else will be seen on this recording. We really appreciate you being here today, and I'm going to hand it over to Mitch. Mitch.
Thank you, Lily. Good morning, everybody. As Lily said, my name is Mitch Bienvenu. I am the Director of the Small Business Development and International Trade Center at College of Lake County, Northern Illinois. And so basically what we do is we help anybody who wants to start or grow a small business. And we have a variety of things we do to accomplish that. And I like to kind of break it down into three parts. We inspire, we educate, and we connect. And so the inspiration part is that we know that not only is it possible, but it's probable that you can be successful as a small business owner if you work smartly and you make good decisions, okay? And so we love hanging around people who have that entrepreneurial bent to them and working with them to help them, like I said, make smart, informed decisions. And so the second part of that is educate. And CLC is obviously, it's an educational institution, but within the Small Business Development Center, we're constantly providing training programs like the one you're going to see today, and many, many others that help our small business owners to just get educated. Because one of the things we know, and from my perspective, having done this personally myself for about 17 years as a small business owner, is that you really have to kind of be a continual student. You have to be learning about what it takes to run a successful business. And so training and education is a key part of that. But then thirdly, not only do you need to educate yourself, but you need to surround yourself with people who can help you, because it's difficult, and in fact, some would say probably unrealistic to expect that the entrepreneur, the business owner operator is going to do everything themselves. The really smart, good ones surround themselves with people and organizations to help. And so that's the connection part of what I just got done talking about. BizHub, which Lily will talk about before we're done, is a resource, a digital platform that can help to connect our small businesses with all the success resources that they need. And so that's a critical part of being successful, is connecting to the expert resources that you require. And one of those resources could absolutely be Venture Validator. In just a moment, I'm going to hand it over to them, and they're going to talk to us about how it is that a small business person can ensure that there is a fit between the market they intend to serve and the product or service that they have to sell. And there's a whole science behind that, and these guys are very good at working out all the details, and in fact getting to a point where you actually have a numerical score that tells you how strong your product market fit is. And so I'm really excited to have them share their philosophy and their approach. So with that, I will hand it over to Eric. Eric Espinosa is the CEO of Venture Validator, and Connor O'Brien is along with him, and they're going to share this presentation with us. So thank you both. Over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch, for sharing us. So yeah, Connor and I are going to go ahead and give a presentation on how one would find product market fit. There's the right way to do it and there's the wrong way to do it. And product market fit is the most important metric that a startup can measure, because if you don't have that, nothing else matters. You're going to fail. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just want to check, Lily, make sure that this is sharing right here. Okay, awesome. So there's two types of entrepreneurs. There's entrepreneurs who understand that when they're doing market research, that they are fraught with confirmation bias. And as they're asking their friends and family questions, or even strangers, they get really excited and they start influencing the way that people react. So there's the entrepreneurs that realize that they do this and that it's very difficult to do market research. And then the second type of entrepreneur just doesn't realize that they're the first type of entrepreneur. So I was that first type of entrepreneur a couple of years ago. Let me see if this can start sharing. There we go. And I had my first, what I thought was a $1 billion idea back when I was in school in the entrepreneurship program at BYU. And I had a dumb idea. It was so dumb, but I was getting data back when I was doing interviews, focus groups, surveys of people saying, wow, this is really cool. I really love your idea. But once I actually built an MVP, or a minimum viable product, I was getting back different data. And I started realizing this is hypothetical data. We're asking people hypothetical questions. And I just spent now a couple $1,000s, what should have been probably $30,000, to build this MVP, and learned that I failed. Is there a way that we could have had that failure happen quicker? So from that, I actually started a couple of different business ideas, won 30 grand, some startup competitions, and then got $650,000 in investment offers. And I had investors trying to invest in my business, but I said, nope, I'm not making that mistake this time. I'm not done with all the validation. Let me continue to validate. And I went out and I actually invalidated my idea about a month and a half later with some industry leaders, and really saved myself from being in bonds to investors for the next couple of years. A lot of first-time entrepreneurs look to investment as the saving grace. That is when they can finally breathe. And the reality is that's when a lot of your problems just begin. So we want to find product market fit before we take investment, before we invest our own time and money into this. I started Wow Factor Consulting as a small startup consulting company, just to help some of the people in the processes that I was creating to test my own ideas. That then quickly grew into Venture Validator, which is a full market research firm for startups. And then I'm also an entrepreneurship professor at BYU. So I've given this presentation on quite a few stages, excited to give it here on BizHub. But then just to get a little bit more background on Venture Validator, we've served over 75 startups, from idea on a napkin up to they've raised a couple $100,000, they've built their product, and they realize that they don't know who their target customer is. And so through that process, we've learned a lot as we've targeted tens of thousands of customers and trying to learn, how do we give accurate surveys and how do we do accurate interviews and find out what does translate from this hypothetical state over into this real life state. And with that, at the end of this course, or at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give access. This is actually something that BizHub is working with Venture Validator to provide free access to what's normally a $200 course, teaching you all of these different tips and practices. So I did put a link up at the top of the chat. If at any time you'd like to fill that out, you can, when we launch this, get access to this course. So fun facts and figures. The number one reason why startups fail is because of no market need. 42%, or almost half of startups fail simply because people don't want your product as badly as you think they would. And that's kind of a ridiculous figure if you really stop to think about it. Every entrepreneur is convinced that their idea is something other people want because they want it themselves. But who are they asking feedback from? Usually it's their friends, usually it's their family, and they're so excited that they're getting this unrealistic expectation that everyone's going to love their idea. So what's the quickest way to go find out if people want your idea? Well, somebody who's experienced in lean startup might say, build an MVP or a minimum viable product. Take the minimum feature set, go put this out there and go build that. The problem, though, is that the average MVP actually takes 4.5 months to build. So you can actually go down the wrong road for 4.5 months, and you're trying to find out, okay, what are the right features that I'm building, and you can actually lose. The average startup, when they fail, loses about $27,000. So we need to learn a lot of these market desirability issues, financial viability issues before you ever even launch your MVP to find out, is it worth your time to be disciplined enough to go down that journey? So that's really what Venture Validator has been trying to tackle for the last 2 years, and we've done a pretty good job. How can we predict failure and pivot to success sooner? So with that, if you haven't heard of product market fit, it's really a conglomeration of 3 things. It's your product, you need to be building the right feature set. And so what are the key features that need to be in the MVP? We're not talking about pie in the sky. I like to say, don't try to build Facebook 2021 where you have your marketplace, you have videos, you have stories, you have posts, you have groups, all of these feature sets. You have to go down to Facebook 2004. What did Facebook 2004 do that no other platform did? It allowed you to connect to other students at your university and find out a little bit about them. Well, that was a unique value proposition that nothing else could offer. So realistically, startups only have the funding ability to build 1 or 2 core features that are unique to your market. And you need to focus on that and say, okay, what are the right feature sets? The second piece is going to be who's your early adopters? What's the right target market? Too often entrepreneurs are targeting a very, very broad market, but you have to realize that there's going to be segments that are more ripe for adoption than others. And the earlier you can identify that, the less money you're going to be wasting on marketing efforts going to try to market to people who it doesn't resonate with quite yet. And the third part of product market fit that's not in the name actually is the price. So not only setting the right price, but being in a market that is valuable enough to merit your time and investors' money to go after. And so these are the 3 issues that are kind of encapsulated in product market fit. And then just one more kind of framework to keep in mind here is something called the innovation trinity. So there are 3 major risks that any startup faces. The first one is going to be market desirability. Do people want my product? The second one is the financial viability. Can we make enough money with this? So that takes your price or your cost and then your price there. And then the third piece is the technical feasibility. Can we actually build it? So your startup right now has one of those risks is bigger than the other. And what Venture Validator is going to go ahead and show you how to do is how to evaluate the market desirability. And this can be of a B2C or a B2B startup, and then how to do the financial viability. These are going to be completely silent on the technical feasibility. So there are 2 types of product market fit tests, 2 stage gates that we can actually do to find out, are you on the right track? And the first one is called the wow factor test. And this is a predictive product market fit test. And you can actually perform it before you've actually had the customer try your product. So it can be, you haven't built the product at all, and you were now trying with new customers and saying, is this something that they would even want to buy? Or you can say, hey, I actually have my product up and live, but I'm trying to find out what market segment to target. Let me go present this to them and see if this is something that they'd be interested in trying. So the wow factor test, we'll go over a little bit later in this demo. It's a 1 to 10 score. You need a score of 7.5 in order to have predicted product market fit. Now, that is what you do before they've tried it. Once they've actually experienced your value proposition, you're going to use something called the Sean Ellis test. And this is testing the actual product market fit. So how did you deliver on the value propositions that you promised? And this is going to be tested with customers who have used your product within the last 2 weeks and have actually experienced those value propositions. So these are your 2 North Stars. One you try before you put all the time and money into building an MVP. The other one you try after you've launched your MVP to say, am I doing things right? Am I at the point now where I should start pouring on fuel to market this? Or do we not have product market fit? Do we not deliver? And what's the discrepancy between these 2 tests? And that's where you need to focus on before putting any money into trying to scale this, or you're just burning up cash that you need for actually getting to pivots that you need. So real quick, let me actually go over, I think this is helpful to go over the end result here of what we're trying to do. Here is an executive summary of a startup that we recently ran. And it shows the top level, what are the elements of product market fit that are important. And just a note for any of you who are interested in taking this course, you will have step-by-step how to actually collect this data, how to analyze the data and report this data so you can do this for your own startup. This startup is an app called Compoundly. It's an app that will go through your different investment portfolios, and it will go through your contracts and find out the different hidden fees that are in your contracts. And then it will go ahead and extrapolate how much those hidden fees are costing you over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And once you see, wow, I'm going to be paying $45,000 in fees over the next 20 years, you might rethink which investment broker you're actually going with and what account type you're going with. And so they then refer you to cheaper accounts that will show you how much you'd actually save if you made the switch. And so we're trying to find out, okay, what's the product market fit here? And what we're doing is we're presenting the product in a very specific way to a very specific group of people. And we're asking them this question: on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the wow factor for this app? Whereas 1, I wouldn't download that. And 10 is, wow, I want to download that right now. So 10 is whatever your call to action. I want to purchase that right now. And the reality is that people are on a continuum. You have people who might be a 4, some are a 6, some are a 9. The average of this target market was a 7.5. And so we're able to find out, okay, you have enough product market fit to continue, but let's find out, where do you have better product market fit for your go-to-market segments? Looking at the target market, those who had higher income and had over $70,000 per year and were also had an investment advisor, they were rating this about a 6.8. Those, though, who didn't have a financial advisor and who typically had less money in the bank, under $70,000, were rating this about a 7.9. So now he's able to understand, this entrepreneur, my target market, my go-to-market segment is actually going to be the person who doesn't have a financial advisor, anyone else to turn to. And that's where I can really come into the market and have a lot more fit. So that's his go-to-market strategy. Now, what are the product features that really resonate with them? What are the marketing value propositions that resonate with this group? And it's going to be saves money from hidden fees. That's what his target market came up with through this research. And the top objections are security and privacy concerns. So now, before he's ever built anything, he's able to say, okay, this is what I really need to deliver on, and this is what are the concerns of my target market. Now let's look at the price. And if we were to do a monthly price, it would be $4.99 per month. So these 3 elements of product market fit, before he's ever built anything, he knows, awesome, I should actually go forward with this idea. And I won't go over this, but we also have a 10-page report here that goes over how this data was collected, more information on the target customer, trying to find out the value propositions, customer objections, price analysis, all of that. So again, backing up, going back to this presentation, if we're trying to get data, we need to make sure that it's good data. So the worst thing that you can do is collect data from a survey or from interviews and do it incorrectly in a way that you are getting inaccurate data. It is much better to have no data and realize that you still have assumptions than it is for you to get bad data and be convinced that you're on the right path. So there's a couple of elements of good survey design. And step by step, we go through exactly how to do it. But the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're asking the right questions. And then you got to make sure that you're asking these questions in the right order. And you need to be very careful about survey length. All of these things are very important, and there is as much as a science to it as there is a feel for or an art to make sure that you're getting accurate information. The second part is you need to make sure that you have a good product description. Entrepreneurs are notoriously terrible explaining their ideas, but there's a good reason why. It's because as an entrepreneur, you're a visionary and you're looking into the future and you see Facebook 2021. You see all of these different features fitting together, and it's very difficult for you to untangle that and say, okay, what is MVP? What are the most important features? And so we've actually pioneered a way that you can explain any idea in 7 steps, going over the customer problem, how existing solutions are inadequate, doing a solution statement, giving the details, a benefit summary, and then the price, that allows customers to now give you this 1 to 10 rating that's very accurate to how they would act in real life. So the next part is your target market. And you need to make sure that you have an unbiased group and that these people meet your screening criteria. So often the go-to is your Facebook friends, and you'll be asking people who are 1 step removed from you. And why do you do this as an entrepreneur? Well, it's a convenience sample for 1. For 2, a lot of times you're afraid of actually learning the truth, and you kind of want to pad and kind of stack your group because you're trying to prove yourself true more than you are to find out what the truth is. So it's very important that you get an unbiased target group and that these are target customers. If somebody is not a target customer, I don't care what their feedback is. I don't care how much they dislike my idea. They're never going to buy it. And so we ignore them. So we need to make sure that we have good screening criteria to capture that. And then the 4th part is making sure that you're doing the analysis correct. I would say that if you look at the errors, probably 30% of people, well, I would say probably 50% of entrepreneurs mess up on the survey design, and that messes up every other piece. And then I would say a good 50% of entrepreneurs have very bad product descriptions, which messes up every other piece. And then they don't have enough target customers, which allows you to, or doesn't allow you to have a correct analysis. But this last piece is really critical, is the data cleaning process. And yeah, you might be collecting 150 responses, but of that, as you go through the cleaning process, you're probably only using 65 of those responses to create a report like this. So doing that analysis process is a very repeatable step-by-step framework, but making sure you follow is very important to make sure that that score at the end, when you spit out a 7.5, that's truly a 7.5, and you're not devaluing that or overstuffing that with bad data. So I want to go over real quick. This is the question that we're asking on the predicted product market fit test. What does it mean and why does it work? Well, really what we're asking people is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close are you to buying this today? And the reality is that most people are not a complete yes or a complete no. There's this gray area, and we can find out why. So if your target market gives you under 5, you don't have product market fit. And you need to either completely abandon the product or completely abandon the target market and start from scratch. It is very, very difficult to start with an idea that has under 5 and get any type of product market fit. I've actually only seen it one time, and there was such a scrap of the target market and the idea that is the only reason they were able to resurrect that idea. Now, most entrepreneurs are scoring about a 6.8. In fact, we always say the average score is a 6.8 for first-time entrepreneurs. And I just did finals for my students yesterday, just graded them. And out of all of the students, I went and I did the average of everyone's wow factor score. And it was a 6.8. So these aren't terrible ideas. Really what this means is that it doesn't have enough uniqueness to it to have any type of virality. So that's the worst part about getting a 6.8, is that you are going to find people that give you a 7.5, an 8, maybe a couple 9s. And those people are going to give you enough hope that you should keep putting money into this and you should keep building this out. But being a 6.8, you're not going to get any word of mouth growth. So the only growth you're going to have is going to be off of your marketing dollars. So if you have a marketing budget, you will get dollar in, dollar out linear growth. As a startup, though, you don't have a lot of marketing dollars, and you need something that is unique enough that is going to have some type of virality and that can really pick up steam. And as you have more customers, they're sharing it, and you're getting that exponential hockey stick growth. And that's only possible if you score over a 7.5. It's a difficult thing to do. In fact, so difficult, the highest score we've ever seen is an 8.6. I've had a couple of 8.6s, but there's a reason to that. I give that score with a caveat. Technically, we've seen a 9.2 before. But as you increase your product market fit score to the 9.0 and above range, what you have to do is actually decrease your target market and who you're actually targeting. And so that one that was actually a 9.2, very, very niche. It was an online certification for dirty dancing instructors. As you can see, not a very market, very, very, very niche. And from an investor perspective, you're going to want to have a bigger market, making sure that you are over that 7.5 mark. And then once we've done that, we can do some cool data on your startup to find out what are the other important elements for implementing these insights to building the right product. So what you're going to do and how you're going to use this score is when you're asking people in your target market, you screen them, you'll say, okay, what's the wow factor for this on a scale of 1 to 10? 1, I wouldn't buy that. 10, I want to buy that right now. People are going to give you 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s. They're along this continuum. And what this allows you to do, your score is actually very flexible. It's very fluid. And maybe you're finding out that, hey, I've tested it with moms and the average score is a 6.8, not high enough. But if I look at the moms who have 2 or more kids and I only filter for them, the average score is actually an 8.2. Well, what this tells you right here is that's who your early adopters are. That's your ideal customer profile. And now you targeting them, we need to find out what are the value propositions that resonate with this 8.2 demographic that maybe didn't resonate with the people who are giving you an average of a 5. And that's a really, really big shortcut to figuring out who your target market is. So big, in fact, that many entrepreneurs waste money doing A/B tests on Facebook ads, and they can't find out who their ideal customer profile is until they've had a couple hundred customers actually go through the process of purchasing, and then they look back at who are these customers. Well, we can kind of reverse that and say, let's go show this to a couple hundred people and find out who are the people saying 8, 9, or 10, I want that right now. Build that customer profile now so that as you're building your product, you're actually incorporating their feedback so that you're not wasting by overbuilding and then having to go back and pivot. So in our course, we teach you how to do interviews and also how to do surveys. And pretty much one of the tactics here that will help you pivot to a better idea is coming in here. And when you're interviewing somebody, let's say they give you a 4, they're out here, right here in this new product market fit land. I'm going to ask them, okay, what do you dislike about this product? What do you not like about it? Why would you not use it? And they're going to give me feedback. Maybe they're for this investment app. Maybe they're saying, I just don't like how I have to input my security credentials. And I think that it might be rough for scams. So then I say, okay, what would you do to change that? How would you improve that? And you're like, well, if you were to be associated with Mint or be in some big financial blogs I follow, and they were a trusted, somebody who I trusted suggested the app to me, then I would feel comfortable putting in my credentials. Okay, they just gave us feedback. Is that important? Is that going to move the needle? Well, let's find out. I would say, okay, I'm going to pitch you version 2.0 of compounding. So in version 2.0, all the same details as the first one, but in addition, we are featured on Mint's blog for investment apps that will save you money. What's the wow factor now for compounding on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I wouldn't download that, 10 meaning, wow, here's my credit card, I want to download that right now. If they give us an 8, 9, or 10 and say, wow, that does it for me, that's very valuable feedback. So now I know it's very important. And if I can accomplish that, I can move this person from this hate group up into my love group. But if I were to ask them that same question and they said, yeah, that moves me up to a 5, well, that's just a charity point. Somebody going up 1 point means that they are just moving it up 1 point to be nice to you, but they're never going to buy your product. So even if we listen to their feedback, even if we gave them the features that they wanted, they're still not going to buy. So it doesn't make sense for us to go listen to non-target customers. And one of the funniest things is that non-target customers are often the most vocal and they have the most ideas and are most passionate about all the things that you should fix. Yet they're never going to buy. So why do we listen to them? We shouldn't. As soon as we find out that, hey, there are 4 going up to a 5, we now say, this is not a target customer. I'm going to rip up all their data and I'm going to completely plug my ears and not listen to that person. Who we're really trying to focus on here are going to be those people in the swing group. So those people who are the 6s and 7s who, if we incorporated their feedback, are going to move up into the 8, 9s, and 10s. That's what we should be fixing in our idea. And then what we should be marketing is the value propositions that resonate with the 8, 9s, and 10s. So whatever they say, this is what I like, this is the value proposition I see, we market that, what the love group loves, to the people who are in the swing group, and that's how you move them up. So overall, that's the predictive product market fit test. For the Sean Ellis test, after you've actually given the value proposition, you're asking how disappointed would you be if you could no longer use this product or service? And really what we're learning here is that if you have over 40% of a market segment saying, I'd be very disappointed, you have product market fit. And these 3 stages correlate very much with this hate group, swing group, and love group. And so you can go ahead and test predicted product market fit. So actually, I did this with Venture Validator's course. We had a predicted product market fit of a 7.8. And then we now had customers go ahead and use it. And we asked them this question. And 46% of customers said they'd be very disappointed if they could no longer have access to it. So now I know, okay, we had a predicted product market fit. We should go ahead and build this, launch it, market it. And then now, how did we execute on that? And knowing that we've executed it well, awesome. Now let's put more money on the fire to actually market this out to more people. So with that, I just want to go over, before I go over some questions, the nitty gritty of how do you find out value propositions is quite important. Essentially, you're going to get pages of feedback from people saying, here are the value propositions that I like, open-ended responses. What you need to go do is actually highlight each of these value propositions and break it up into different groups. And so you'll have maybe 10 different groups of value propositions. And once you categorize that, we can now measure it. And so we can say, okay, 25 people are saying this value proposition. This is the number one. This is what I should market. Everything else right here, that's just noise. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they try shotgunning everything because they don't know what is the value proposition that resonates most. And if you think, oh, like this isn't me, it probably is you. And the funny thing is, I'll talk with people who have raised even $3 million for their startup, and they will have a good product, but they've been pitching their whole life. And as soon as they trust us and realize that we're here to help, they kind of break down and will admit, guys, I actually don't know what my number one value prop is. I know it's probably one of these 4. I know some of them work some of the time, but I don't know who my ideal customer is. I have an idea. I think it's one of these 3 segments, but I can't tell you which one is adopting more than the other because I've only had 20 customers. And so I can't tell you yet who that's going to be. Well, through this exercise, you're actually able to say, okay, here's the value proposition, backtrack. Who does that resonate with? Who's giving us an 8, 9, or 10? Okay, now what do they have in common with their demographics or the psychographics? That's who we should be targeting. Right here's a chart on customer objections. So same logic here. We're trying to find out what is the number one reason people wouldn't use your service and what is that objection? And now we can say, okay, if I can pair my number one value proposition with my number one objection resolver in my webpage, in my marketing content, that's how I can actually capture people because they're interested in this, but their gut reaction is, oh, but this. And so if you solve that, that's how you can now maintain people's attention and actually get them onto your buying page. So last part is demand curve, finding out, okay, what's the profit maximizing price point? How much are people actually willing to pay? This is not doing an average. Doing an average for your price is a terrible way to actually get data. And that's what entrepreneurs, that's all they know. So we teach them, how do you actually map out your demand curve? And then if you have costs, how do you map out your cost curve? And then do some Excel magic to find out, okay, this is the profit maximizing price point. What do you do with that now? Okay, if you say that the profit maximizing price point is $9.99, now I know, okay, who are my early adopters? For the very start of this presentation, we talked about Compoundly, them being an app that fits better those who don't have a financial advisor, who have less than $70,000. Go online, find out, hey, look, there are about 25 million people in this target market. multiply that by your profit maximizing price point, and now you're finding out, okay, this is what the total addressable market is. Is this worth starting today? And often the answer is yes, if you have a large target market. If you've had to filter down, you say, yeah, my overall score is a 6.8. I keep filtering. The only group that I can find are this very niche group, and there's only about 1 million people in there. Doing the multiplication, my target market's not worth it for me to go ahead and invest $500,000 to even get the startup cost to then have a shot at succeeding. So a lot of these things, like I said, you can figure out before investing 4.5 months into your MVP, before investing $30,000 into your startup. And then as you're going along the way, you're constantly measuring so that as you're building, you're trying to say, am I executing? And then should I be marketing this? So with that, I just want to give a brief overview of Venture Validator services. We really have kind of a timeline of things here. If you value your time more than your money, Venture Validator can do this for you over here on the left. We will actually do these reports for you for $1,300 to $4,000. If you value your time, if you value your money more than your time, then we do have a free mini course. But luckily, for anybody who's on this today, we are giving access to our full course. It's a $200 course that teaches you very concisely, step by step, how to do all these processes. And to access that, you can go ahead, there's a link in the chat. I believe it's still there. And if you fill out that form, you'll be able to apply to receive free access to this within the next few weeks. So with that, we'd love to open up to some Q&A. And if anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I have a question for you, Eric. During the course of working with startups, what is the biggest learning point you find them to acknowledge? Like, what is the aha moment that kind of traverses all the organizations that you work with?
So let me reverse that question. What is probably the biggest value that might be unexpected to entrepreneurs?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's explaining their idea. When it's ever somebody on idea on a napkin before they have an MVP, they're so bad at explaining their idea. And I'm sure that you guys meeting with entrepreneurs, you experience this all the time. You'll sit with an entrepreneur for a half hour and you still don't completely grasp their idea. Right. So we can't test that. The only way we can test that is if we can find out what is your minimum viable product. So we have a very repeatable process to extract that from their brain. And it's simply, this is really what it is. It's okay, vomit out what are all the value propositions that you have? So they'll probably give us, we'll try to get 10 value propositions. Every time they give us a value proposition, we say, okay, why is that value proposition important? And they're saying, well, with Compoundly, we're able to expose hidden fees. Okay, well, why is that important? Well, because people don't read their contracts and they don't know where the hidden fees are. So now I'm understanding, okay, this is more of the problem they're addressing. So we get 10 of those. And then we say, okay, what are the existing solutions? Because there's obviously people who can solve different pieces of that. And so they'll say, well, maybe there is an advisor that can go through and find those hidden fees. But why is that not adequate at delivering another value proposition? Well, it just costs too much money. Okay, now I've gotten on paper, here's all the value props and here's the different problems. Now let's just cross out the ones that are already done. Now I've got to say MVP, this is what nothing else in the market can deliver. Now that I've done that, I can say, okay, who is the ideal customer for this? Here's the problem that they're solving. Here's the relevant existing solutions. And then here's our solution. And then a benefit summary, which is simply an inverse of what no one else can provide. So that process is super, super important for entrepreneurs that they don't realize until they've gone on 2.5 hours of meetings with Connor, Brian, or myself, and have kind of had us harass them until we can narrow it down. And then as a team, as a startup team, it gives them so much more unity. Usually, sometimes it doesn't because they have to make a decision. Do I go this way or that way? But after we've now tested this, it gives the startup now okay, here's a roadmap. Here's the features that I know we should be building. And when they actually have disagreements, they go back to this report and say, this is what our customer said, and it brings that alignment.
Nice, nice. That's great. Do you have a success story that you like to share? Is there
Yeah,
an
one of my
organization
worst
that you work with?
customers.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
came to me with this idea. It was so dumb. It was so dumb. And I usually don't say most ideas are dumb, but this one, I'm like, guys, I will not test this because it's probably about a 3.5. And I know that right now. So I am going to force you to do some interviews before we even start this. And so they went and did interviews and they were scoring under the 5. And so I said, okay, you need to really focus target market, focus on the product features. And they started testing things and they were getting about a 6.8 and they kept getting about a 6.9, a 7.0. But through that, we were then going on to the next process and we found out this is the target market who's really resonating with. Let's really, really jump on that. And then they were getting 8.3s. And so really shot their product market fit up because they were diligent in refining before they were building. Now they've gone forth and it's been about a year that they've gone on with this new idea. And I think they just closed about $1 million in this funding round. And it is phenomenal, the wireframes they've built based off of the user journey. And so they know exactly what to build, exactly who it's for, and they haven't wasted any money on developing that one 3.5 idea that would have been a waste.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Mitch, do you have any questions for Eric?
So the thing that's going around in my mind is something you said earlier on in your presentation, Eric, which was that, sometimes entrepreneurs just don't want to know the truth about the product market fit because, and I know this from personal experience, having done it myself many years ago, and now I'm working with people all the time who get excited about an idea and they think everybody else is going to fall in love with it. And so to what degree do you see that? And when I say that, I mean that people just aren't willing to face up to the truth. So if they get a score of 4 or something like that, that they're saying to themselves, that can't be right. We got to dig into this deeper, or I just have a feeling that it's got to be higher than that. What do you find there?
Yeah, actually, this happened this last week. So it depends on the person. There are those who are honest seekers of the truth, and they will tell us actually in our customer discovery call, I'm willing to be wrong. And if I'm wrong, like, I want to know that. I'd rather save my money and learn that now. And I would say those people often have a little bit more experience. This probably isn't their first startup, which means it isn't their first failure. Then there is the group who they say, okay, well, maybe it's just not my target market. And so in fact, this last week, we tested a social media app that wasn't too different than most social media apps. It did have enough differentness though, that we said, okay, we can go ahead and test this. Came back and it scored, I think, a 5.1. And the benefit of us teaching out, the benefit of us doing the data and able to have this data is that allows me to have a lot of passion to tell the entrepreneur to quit. Because it's no question, if you score a 5.1, there is no chance in succeeding. And so I actually made a 20-minute video giving to the entrepreneur saying, look, I've been where you've been. I had my own, it was a dating app. It was a kid out of college. I've been where you were. I know your gut reaction is going to refute this data and say, well, you didn't really talk to my target customer. We've done a very good screening on this. You should not go with this idea. And so I really poured my heart and soul out to him, and he still came back and he's like, I really appreciate this. I know that you really care about me in our startup. I just wish now that I'm seeing this data that we would have tested it more with this subset of the target market, because I know that they would have given me a 7, 8, or 10.
Right.
And so I had to say, okay, maybe that's true. I'm actually going to give you a free access to my course right now, because now you've gone through it and us created the survey. It'll be quite easy for you to go ahead and get this data yourself. But I've just gone through that subset of the data that you just asked on. They're giving you a 4.3, lower than your original score. So yeah, their reaction is, well, what about this segment? And the answer to that is awesome. Go test with that segment. It comes to a point where they've tested all the segments and they realize, okay, maybe my baby is ugly. let me go pivot to the next idea.
Right. That's good. Yeah, I think it just emphasizes the importance of having a somewhat dispassionate connection to the truth about your product and your market, because if you move forward with a product or service offering, you're getting ready, especially as a startup, to spend a lot of your own money and a lot of your own time trying to push something that, if there isn't a fit, it's kind of like trying to push a rope. You're not going to make any headway if that fit isn't there. So
yeah, I would say, I was actually venting to a mentor the other day, as I've had two people that I've told them very explicitly. One of them wasn't a customer of mine, but just somebody I was mentoring. I've done this before. I've seen this happen. You are going to fail. Don't do this. And what they heard is, like, he thinks I got potential. It's like, no, that's not what I said. But as entrepreneurs, we have this bias where we'll hear positive, negative feedback, and all that actually resonates with us is positive feedback. It's really funny. That's why I said there's two types of entrepreneurs: the ones that realize that they're fraught with this, and the ones that just have the same issues. They just are ignorant of it yet. And so when I look back and say, okay, when I was that dumb student entrepreneur who would reject mentors' advice, what was the voice that I would say? And so as an entrepreneur, if you hear this in your own mind when customers telling you this, then you're that first entrepreneur. So I would hear people say negative things, and I would think, oh, well, they're stupid. That's a dumb customer. They just don't get it. Or I'm talking to the mentor, and well, I just haven't explained it enough to them. They're very busy, and I've only explained a half hour. If I had an hour and a half, then they would see the vision.
Yeah.
If you're saying those things, you're probably not hearing the other things that people aren't telling you that are negative also. So the only way, as mentors too, because I know there are a lot of mentors on this call, it's very difficult to tell somebody that their baby's ugly and they shouldn't, that doesn't resonate with them. Really, you need to give them, hey, here are the tools to go do a micro test that won't cost a lot of money, so they can go find out for themselves.
Yeah.
And then what really helps me is, as an entrepreneur, you're always pitching, and you're always trying to prove that you're right. And you're this little guy, underdog, world's against you, and you're trying to pitch the best. And it's because you're trying to get funding, you're trying to get team, you're trying to get into accelerators, all these different things. Well, try reversing that. Try flipping it around and try disproving your idea with just as much passion and zeal. So I looked at it as a courtroom and said, okay, if you think about it, a lawyer could argue either side. They're really not connected to one or the other. It just happens so that I was their client. Try arguing. You've argued so passionately because you're, in competition mode, your side, and this is validated on your business model. For a second, for a really good thought experiment, try arguing the other side. And try poking holes at why every survey you've ever run or every customer you ever talked to is actually related to you, and it's their mom, and this is why that feedback's bad, and how, use that same data and try to turn it around. As you do that, now step back as a judge and say, okay, not that one side won or the other, but here are the pieces where there are roadblocks, where you can equally argue this other side. Now you've identified what needs to be tested first. So to go do that test as inexpensively as you can. And more often than not, you will fall out of love with your idea, but that's part of the journey. And you now move on to the next one.
Eric, it has been great to hear from you and to hear more about your company. There's not a lot of people that would tell somebody their baby is ugly. So, but I think it's great. Honesty is so important in this industry, and so important to have. Thank you so much for your presentation and for sharing your knowledge. And again, anyone that sees the Venture Validator course link over on the other side, please sign up for that, because it's obviously a really valuable course for somebody to take. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what I would like to do now is we're going to head into taking a peek at BizHub, which is actually this week's launch is all about BizHub. And we're so pleased to have presenters like Eric from Venture Validator and our presenters that we've had, David Ponraj from Startup Space, as well as Eric from TAD. Such great presenters to be able to talk about some of the platforms and resources available in the community. So we really want to show you a little bit about what BizHub is. So I'm actually going to share my screen to show you how to access it. So anybody who's on this call right now would have received 2 emails when you registered. One of them would have had a temporary password for you to be able to go in and claim your profile in BizHub, which is a free virtual hub, a connectivity community where you can access resources, information, peer-to-peer support, mentors, and everything. So I'm going to show you actually how to get there. What I'm sharing right now is a familiar screen. You'll see Mitch's company, Illinois Small Business Development and International Trade Center. You notice right here, it says BizHub. If you click on there, it's going to take you straight to the BizHub landing page where it will give you a little bit of information about the mission of BizHub, really to connect you to resources and information. This Get Connected, I'll show you where that goes in just one second, talks a little bit about Startup Space and how it is the powers the BizHub. It's kind of the scaffolding underneath, but of course, BizHub is your community. This is all localized. Over here, you'll see very forward-facing resources. We have a resource compass, a community calendar of events, as well as knowledge center and community stories. But I'm going to show you where you can access even more in addition to these resources. I'm going to click on the Get Connected. It's going to take me straight to the login page. So again, I'm going to put these links into the chat so you know how to get right into BizHub. So with that email and temporary password, you can go right here. If for any reason you have forgotten your password, don't worry about it. Right here, forgot password, or need a login link without password. Always, we're trying to be as accessible as possible. If you have not registered and you'd like to get a profile in BizHub, you can click register right here and you can fill that out. BizHub is also available on the Startup Space app. So please feel free to download the app in either the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. And by putting in your location where you are and looking for BizHub, you'll be able to access all of these things on the app as well as the desktop, which I'm going to show you right now. So once you log in, you're going to be directed right to your profile page. This is my profile page. So I'm going to give you a little journey of how I see BizHub. The main homepage is a really important page. This is kind of how it powers your journey through BizHub. And the way that's done is by your profile and how you identify yourself. So I want to encourage all of you to first go in. I want you to click on profile and identify yourself. You can talk about the areas you're interested in. You can talk about your expertise, what industry you're in, as well as select personas. Always make sure after you fill out your profile, you update it. And what that's going to do is it's going to really notify your homepage as to what you're interested in. And as you journey down, not only do I have conversations that I'm involved with other communities, but it also is going to tell me about some upcoming events. Notice we have the upcoming events that are happening right now, and then suggested resources right over here, as well as suggested articles that might be of interest to me within the community. So it's going to power based off of how you identify some things that might be important to you. But don't worry, you're not limited to just those areas. If I scroll right up here, we've got our Ask Us BizHub area, which is very much in line with the My Community. So you have a couple of different ways of entering into the community to interact. And let me show you some ways you can do that. You could go into the Connect Now. As you'll see, I just posted a little bit ago thanking Eric for his fantastic presentation, and you really should check him out. You could even contact Eric here right on BizHub by just visiting him in the member directory and shooting him a note. But in addition, if you wanted to post, introduce yourself, talk about your startup, ask questions, get support, you can just do a quick post right here and click post. Over here in the member directory, as I mentioned before, you can search based off of people's names. So we'll just look here for Eric, and we could reach out to Eric, send him a little message. Maybe you want to set up some more time with him to talk about the Venture Validator. Real easy to do. You can also search by personas. If you're looking for specific type of support within the community, depending on how people identify themselves, you'll be able to pull that up. Our resource compass, which you saw forward facing as well. So you don't even have to log in to get to the resource compass, but I want to show you the power of it. So we had Venture Validator today, and they're really helpful with sales and customer acquisition. We could search for that based off my interest, and we have the Venture Validator come up, as well as some other options for you. So by searching by interest, by your expertise, by your industry, you're really able to narrow down the resources that are currently there, which we're going to continue to build and add on, what you need when you need it 24/7. In addition, we're going to be continuing to curate that community calendar. So we have events listed. Just to remind you, we have our event coming up tomorrow, the new business model plan and pivot, which is an event that is part of the Biz launch. So it's a free event. Come on in, register for that, and enjoy the presentation tomorrow at 9 a.m. In addition, we know that everyone needs inspiration. So we're going to be sharing stories about entrepreneurs in the community, small business owners, and other relevant content that might relate to you, as well as our knowledge center, where you can pull up information that might be relevant based off of needs around COVID, or maybe a simple guide to your company's financial support. So there's a lot of different ways that you can interact with BizHub, and we look forward to seeing you in there. We look forward to you introducing yourself, and we're also going to be checking to see who actually is in BizHub and what are they doing. We have an awesome leaderboard where we've got some people eking up on gaining points. Some of the things that I showed you today are ways you can gain points by either introducing yourself, connecting in the Connect Now, shooting a hello to Eric from your inbox, and several other ways, including downloading the app. So we have a fantastic drawing for a prize at the end of this week. Gift card to a local business that Mitch will be connecting with the most active participant on BizHub. So we look forward to seeing you in there. Thank you so much for letting me share. I will put over in the side how to access BizHub so that you can log in and get to know more about that. Of course, always if you go to the CLC page, you'll be able to access BizHub from there, and then I'll also show you where the login page is. So thank you, everybody. Mitch, I'm going to hand it over to you to say goodbye.
All right, thanks, Lily. Yep, so I'll just cap it off by saying, please take advantage of these no-cost resources. We have the Venture Validator workshop that's coming up, and Eric already provided the link to that. So take it yourself, spread the word about it if you find that others may be interested in that. And then BizHub, obviously, it's a great platform to connect and build community here in Lake County in support of our small businesses. So thanks everybody for the time. Have a great rest of the day. I hope to see you back here Thursday and Friday.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.